Coming up on our Finding Better podcast, I have Teryn Gregson joining me. She's the author of the book called The Only Like That Matters is God's. We're going to talk about social media. We're going to talk about cancel culture. We're going to talk about how all these things are not only toxic, but can be used in really, really great ways to transform your life. Okay? Please join us. Hello, 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 and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and I am your host. And Finding Better is all about heart. It's about sharing experiences and our own personal wisdom to help folks live better lives. And sometimes the best path to success is to copy it. I have an amazing guest today. Her name is Teryn Gregson, and we're going to talk about her journey in cancel culture, in social media, and faith. And she's going to share her experiences not only in finding and living a better life, but in her case, really transforming it into something amazing. Teryn is the author of the book called The Only Like That Matters is God's, using the Bible to transform your life on social media. I am so thrilled you're here, Teryn. Welcome to our Finding Better podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me, John.
Yeah, you've had quite the journey. You've had quite the experience, and I want to share just a little bit more about you, okay? So
hmm
that I can frame this properly. So you're an avid golfer, and Taryn was a broadcaster for CBS Sports, Fox Sports Midwest. Wow, the St. Louis Cardinals. So you're a big sports nut, right?
Yes.
And finally, for the PGA Tour, and that's where you were fired
hmm
for religious discrimination during the pandemic. Great timing,
hmm
back in November 21. But instead of walking away from your faith, you doubled down on it, and you helped start a ministry, which is amazing, called Driving Disciples, which focuses on youth Bible study and golf. Is that about right?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah,
And
we're
and
golf inspired by the gospel.
That's amazing. And you also have a number of projects, including a show called Faithful Freedom
Yes,
with
I
Teryn Gregson, right?
Yeah, I we launched that show about 2 months after I was fired because We the Patriots USA, they're a public interest nonprofit law firm. They approached me and said, "Hey, we would like to help take on your civil rights case against the PGA Tour after I was fired over the COVID protocols." And so I was humbled that they were willing to step in and help with that. And we're still going through that process. We filed in federal court in the state of Florida, and we're still waiting on all of that to play out. And in the meantime, they said, "Hey, listen, would you like to start a show with us?" And so I said, why not? God put us together for a reason. So we started a show, Faithful Freedom with Teryn Gregson. That ran for 2 years, and it was very much focused on medical freedom as well as on just finding freedom in your life from the system, from the processed food
Whoa.
system, and all those various things. Just trying to open our eyes up to all the ways that bureaucracy was infiltrating our everyday lives and our food system and our medical system. And that lasted for 2 years. It was syndicated nationwide. And earlier this year, I stepped away when we were expecting our third child, and we were in the middle of setting up our homestead that you see me on here now. And I was getting ready I was in my final push with editing on this book. And so I said, I have to focus on my family first and being a
Yeah,
mom of three.
good
So I
for
stepped
you.
away from the show. So I'm not doing that any longer, but people can go on and listen to all the episodes still.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So tell us a little bit about your journey with I want to talk with you about cancel culture, social media, right? I mean,
Mhm,
your book is
mhm.
about the only like that matters is God's, and your faith. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that journey that you've been on. So just real quick, if you so you were fired from the PGA Tour
Mhm.
for your religious beliefs.
They denied my religious exemptions from masking and testing. I went through a very intense process of getting a religious exemption from the COVID shot. I was pregnant with our second child at the time, and it was a very tumultuous process. And it turns out
Oh
only
my
a
gosh.
very select few of us um, did not get the shot. And so it was
Hmm.
very targeted. In the state of Florida, there were never any mask rules in Florida or anything like that. And by this time, November 2021, pretty much everyone was getting COVID at this point, no matter if you had gotten it or not. And
Right.
I said, I don't believe in discrimination. This is not a part of my religion or who I am. I'm also a Christian, and we are made in the image of God. We are to go out into the world and shine our light for others. It says that we are
Hmm.
to go in front of God with unveiled faces and worship, and that everywhere else in the Bible, it was showing me that when someone was covering their face, it was out of shame. And I was not ashamed to be one of the very few unvaccinated at the PGA Tour. And so I said, hey, I'm filing a religious exemption from the masking and testing. They said, these are our rules, regardless of your religious beliefs. And I said, can I go into the office and not be discriminated against, just like my other vaccinated employees? They said no. And so I said, okay, I'm pregnant. I'm going to go on maternity leave here upcoming in a little bit. Can I continue to work from home like I had been doing for 19 months? I had a home studio set up. We had been doing all of my
Hmm.
shows from home. The viewers, didn't know one way or the other. And
Well, sure. I mean,
my
during
show was
those times,
actually
everybody was
doing
doing it from home.
yeah,
Yeah.
everyone was. And I did my show on a green screen. So a green screen at home versus a green screen in studio, it all looked the same. And my show was actually performing better and at its highest ratings that it had ever gotten. They said no, they would not allow me to work from home. They fired me, and then they allowed my
Wow.
immediate team to continue working from home after they fired me.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's a few things wrong with that picture, aren't there?
yeah, there's lots of things wrong with that
No
picture.
kidding. No kidding.
Yeah, and there are some people that they did allow medical exemption to from masking and testing. They did not allow my religious exemption from masking and testing. It was a very,
Okay.
so many people have experienced this in one degree or another in their workplace. It was a very tumultuous time for so many people, and
Yeah.
we that, like you said, John, that experience strengthened my faith, because as difficult as it was, that was a long drawn out process that was happening behind the scenes, an internal battle that most people were not aware that I was having at the time. I kept it very private. It was a very stressful time for me and my family, especially being pregnant with our second child at the time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my husband and I, we prayed so much through that whole process, and we had a sense of peace that we knew that this is what God wanted us to do. We knew that God had put that on our hearts. He had convicted our hearts and said, this is not for you. You need to say no to this, and pray that they will come around and understand where you're coming from your beliefs, if they don't continue to stand strong for me. And it was, we had a peace. That's what I tell people. No matter how hard a situation is, if you are being led by the Holy Spirit in it, you will feel that peace. It doesn't mean it's not going to be hard, it's not going to be difficult, but you'll have a sense of peace knowing that the Holy Spirit is with you and guiding you throughout all of that. And that really did show us how to lean on God in hard times, and how to completely put all of our faith in Him, and knowing that it's completely out of your hands. There's nothing you can do. Um, and so that was where we were coming from in all of it. And so I did experience cancel culture. I had been in broadcasting for a decade at that point in time. And so I had built up, social media was, a necessary evil, a part of being a
Absolutely.
broadcaster by that
Absolutely.
point in my,
Huge. Huge part,
yeah,
right?
a huge part.
Yeah.
And my shows actually appeared on social media, it was a part of what I did. And so I received death threats. I received all kinds of hateful messages from people for how polarizing that subject was at that point in our nation's history, in our world history, unfortunately. And so I had a lot of threats. I had, if you Google my name, you'll see some articles on USA Today and various national publications that do not paint me in a positive light, because at the time the mainstream media didn't agree with me either in these various things. So, which, that's a whole nother subject to go down, right? Whether
Yeah, no,
a media
totally.
member, you should be writing from a unbiased standpoint. But the point of the matter is that I had that cancel culture moment, and I actually had written this book, started writing it in 2019, and had written a lot of it in 2020, and all of the hype and I had broadcast agents at the time, we had book agents, people were excited about this in the publishing world, and everything fell through whenever I was fired. But as God's timing is always perfect, that moment allowed me to add to the book in so many ways, because people and children and teens are afraid of and have anxiety and experience cancel culture on a micro level. Not maybe in the same way in the national light that I did, but they're afraid of their peers canceling them, ostracizing them. And some teenagers are experiencing the ostracization that they get from their peers via social media, whether it's if they're standing up for something that they don't agree with in their public school, if they're just bullied online, for how kids are, for various reasons that they get bullied,
Right.
or if they have scathing or uh, embarrassing content posted about them on social media, whether it's embarrassing videos or pictures or things that they had not intended to get out. Children are experiencing these on various levels, and it's affecting the mental health of our youth. And unfortunately, some youth go on to commit suicide, depending upon the level and the intensity that the cancel culture occurs for them. So I know that so many people attach cancel culture with like a celebrity being canceled and having to make a public apology and things like that. But teenagers are experiencing it
Oh God.
inside their
Oh,
teen groups on a micro
no
level.
doubt. No doubt. I was in technology for about 40 years,
Mhm.
and I jumped into my retirement. Haven't been busier in my life since then, but I jumped into my retirement, and this is one of the things that I'm doing in my retirement. And I'll tell you something, I talk about social media as being a double-edged sword, and it affects everybody. And,
Yes.
there's a lot of really wonderful things about it in terms of bringing
Mhm.
people together. But holy smoke, I mean, you look at the rise of mental health issues that young people have, and that growth curve almost coincides with the rise of social media,
It
and
does.
it's just crazy. It's you know, and you went through it. You went through a really bad experience as an adult. How do you talk to younger people, young people who are experiencing, and you know, a lot of times you don't even know what they're experiencing, right? They
Yeah.
don't even know what
Mm-mm.
they're experiencing and how it's affecting them. So what's the kind of advice that you give to folks? Because you've been through it, right?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. That you have to come at things like social media, especially social media is such a secular medium, right? We are bombarded with secular messaging left and right, and
Absolutely.
it's such a secular medium. We have to be very intentional about bringing our biblical worldview to our usage and our consumption of social media. And that's my number one thing. And the number one reason why I wrote this book. I had parents coming to me and messaging me on social media saying, I can tell that my teen is having issues with social media, whether it's, an addiction, and adults too, whether it's an addiction and being on it too much, or it's affecting their self-esteem and things like that, what have you, or they're afraid that they're consuming, evil or dark things on social media. What can I do? What kind of rules do I need to put up? And,
Right,
for me
right.
at this time in 2020, we had just had our first child. I'm not a mother of a teenager, right? And I'm saying I don't really have the authority to tell you what rules to put into place for your teenager. I'm not in that point in my parenting journey yet. but I am not that far removed from being a teenager, and I know how rules don't work. Rules don't work for teens. Rules don't work for adults, right? You can set up some rules, and then eventually you're going to break them. The only way that you're really going to transform your attitude about social media is if you transform the lens in which that you're looking through it. And so we have to arm ourselves first as parents, as people, as adults, and then arm our children with a biblical worldview when they're consuming social media, and giving them those tools like the armor of God, and like just in God's word being stored up in their heart, and so that they can see, and we can look at the various examples in the Bible on how the Israelites had to overcome comparison, how having an influence in your life, whether it's that of negative influence like Lot's wife, or having positive influence like Queen Esther, or Jesus as the ultimate influencer, looking at these things in your life, and then seeing, okay, this does apply to my life application of social media. And so we need to arm them with an actual solid foundation whenever they are approaching these subjects and these things online. Nothing is new under the sun. Yes, social media in the grand scheme of history is new, but the problems that it presents to us are not. God's people
Absolutely.
have been
Yeah.
delivered from these issues numerous times in the Bible. God gives us examples in his word for a reason that we can apply these. And let's face it, all right, we have all been on the fast track here in society of the fast track. Technology has sped up our lives more and more from each generation to generation. Social media is our breaking point, right? We were already on track for being pushed further and further away from God. When you fill up your life with all these other things, all these other busy things, or material things, or goals in your life that do not involve God, when you start to fill your life up with all this other stuff and push God down, 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 which is what's been happening in society for generations, you're eventually going to meet a breaking point. Social media is our breaking point to show us that we need to lean on God more than we've ever needed to. And our children are hungry, our youth are desperate, and they're hungry for Christ, and they don't know it. They are not being shown God and Christ and Christ-like examples on social media to a large degree.
Right.
But we can show them how to use social media as a tool instead of something that is an idol in their life that overcomes everything about them. And so, you know, the Bible is our handbook for all of this and how we approach this. And so when we show our kids, okay, we have a true biblical example of modesty and how we should interact with one another in a respectful manner that respects our hearts, our bodies, and our minds. And this is our foundation, not mom over here saying, here's your list of rules that you need to follow. No, our authority is coming from God. It is coming from the Bible. That is going to be 10 times more powerful. We do give people in the book, we give them, you know, plenty of ways to show how they can, and tools to limit their time on social media. That is still something that we do have to do, right? We do have to all kind of limit our time on social media. Everybody, myself included, struggles with spending too much time on it. So yeah, we have
Well, it's that
screen.
dopamine thing, right? I
Yes,
mean,
it
it's a natural
is.
thing. It's designed in to social
Mhm.
media, which is just evil.
It
It's just
is,
evil.
and we talk about that on, you know,
Hmm.
being idle, and what the Bible says about idleness, and you know, using examples of King David of when we are idle and we go off and get into mischief, what that can do, rather than being, you know, that Proverbs 31 woman that is out there, you know, glorifying God through the things that she does. But you mentioned that dopamine hit, you know, how many people today, my family members included, say, okay, I'm going to take a break. And when they take a break, whether they're sitting down at home or have some downtime at a restaurant waiting for someone, you rest by scrolling through social media and on your phone, which that's not really resting, right? So we're never really giving ourselves that breath. Teens
The
really
peace.
need that
Yep.
time, that peace.
Yep. Yep.
It's good, especially for young people, to be bored. That's what bolsters imagination. That's whenever you start to think of things and creativity comes out. And it's good for you to be bored, to be at peace. That's that time that you can spend with God and prayer, by yourself. And so many of us have been have tricked ourselves into thinking that rest is zoning out on our phones and scrolling through social media.
Right.
And that couldn't be further from the truth. You're still getting that dopamine hit, and you're still not allowing your brain to have that rest. And we are at a point too, I was mentioning earlier about how we're at our breaking point, and social media
Mm-hmm.
is our flag to show us that that's where we're at. And we have been go, 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 go. People don't know how to rest. People don't know how to sit there and be still and feel that presence with God. And most people don't honor the Sabbath anymore, which is something that God ingrained in us and built into us. He himself rested on the seventh day. So why are we
That's
better
right.
than
That's
God and
right.
don't need
You
that
know,
rest?
one of the things that I tell folks, and I ask folks, I say, how many minutes a day, not even hours, how many minutes a day do you give yourself peace? And everybody looks at me like, what are you talking about? Right? Well, I sleep.
Yeah.
I said, no, no, no. Consciously give yourself peace. And I start with 2 minutes. 2 minutes, Teryn. 2 minutes
Yeah.
a day. Give yourself 2 minutes a day where you just turn off your phone. Uh, okay, don't turn it off. Just set it aside,
Set it
right?
aside. Yeah. Hmm.
And just close your eyes for 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Hmm.
That's it. And it's amazing how hard that is to do.
Hmm.
But if people when people do that, and I've had people come back and say, John, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But I kept trying,
Hmm.
and I got to 2 minutes.
And
And I
immediately started doing something. Yeah.
yeah, but I told them, I said, all right, so what did you hear during those 2 minutes? And they're like, what? What did you hear during those 2 minutes? And it's but that peace, especially in the world like you were talking about, Teryn, that peace is so so important. And you mentioned even God Himself gave him the whole
Yep.
day out of 7 of peace.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
and
It's
yet we don't do it.
essential
We
to
don't know how
our
to do it.
we
Yeah,
don't we don't know how to do it.
we
We've
have
been
to relearn it.
conditioned. We have to relearn it. We've been conditioned not to do it. And I myself struggle with it. I'm a mom with 3 kids, 4 and under. It's hard for me to find that living room intimacy with the Lord,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yes. But for me, it's like when I'm washing dishes after dinner, like that's my peaceful time. I can talk to God, or when I'm making dinner. But I give people a formula for rest. We dive into Hebrews 4 and we show what it is talking about with the Sabbath. It tells us that we should not be disobeying the Ten Commandments, and that we should be honoring the Sabbath. And then it goes on the very next line to say that God's word is sharper than a two-edged sword. Why is it saying that? Because we are to rest in God's word. And so I give in the book this formula. It's called it's the R's, okay? The R's, so it's easy for people to remember. We are to read God's word and therefore reflect on what God's word says about ourselves. So it will reveal our shortcomings that we can work on. We are to take those to the Lord and to confess what it's revealing to us. And then, therefore, we can receive God's mercy and grace when we pour ourselves out to Him. And that is when we can ultimately rest. When you are receiving God's mercy and grace, you let all of that lift off of you. You let all of your anxieties, all of the difficulties that you're having in your life. When you receive His grace, then you can find rest. Then you can relax. Then you can find that rest that so many people are searching for. Teens, parents, everyone is searching for that rest. And so
And let,
that,
let me just add there. Let me just
yeah.
add something to what you just said. They're not only searching for it, but w- you know, one of the things I help people do is to understand they have to fight for it.
Yes.
They have to fight for it.
Hmm.
And you know, it's not just going to come to you. Now, you know, um, one of the things as you were talking about those four R's,
Hmm.
right? I just wanted to share with everybody who is searching and is looking. Um, God's love is not conditional. Okay. Now, the things that Teryn was just saying is a guideline, right?
Hmm.
But
Yes.
God's not saying you have to do all four in order for you to
No.
receive, right?
No.
Or all
Hmm.
three before you receive. You know, get finding yourself at peace and just giving yourself that. I mean, like you said, you got three kids under, under the age of four, so your life is chaos.
It is.
But at the same time, right? I mean, you're able to do that because you're prioritizing it, and he is such you've welcomed him into your heart, and he's such a big part of your life. And so, you know, you just it's opening your heart, and it doesn't have to be hard. It's just a relationship, the best relationship you've ever had in your life.
It really is the best relationship. And it's the underlying factor, John, in everything that we're talking about. And that's why the name of the book is called The Only Like That Matters Is God's. And I do go in there
It's
and I
true.
reinforce, you know, his like is all we need. We don't deserve it. We can't earn his like. He gives us all of his likes for free. But if you have him as the one that you are, if you have an eternal perspective, if you are not worried about your peers, about being canceled, about pleasing other people, if the one and only that you are aiming and putting everything into in your life is God, then you can overcome cancel culture. Then you can find rest and peace. Then you can overcome the shackles that social media has so many of us in. His like is what's going to get you through all of it, because not none of this other stuff, yes, it hurts, yes, it can be difficult, but it's not your end all be all, and you'll have a different perspective. You can get through all of the pressures on social media so much more easily when society's like and what they are deeming as good and wonderful and virtuous is doesn't light a candle to what God's does. If that's the perspective ultimately that you bring to your life on social media, and that you are able to arm your teen or your children with when they are approaching social media, that is how you're going to get through it at the end
And
of the
and
day.
and you know, the thing about it is that social media can be a good thing,
It
right? I
can,
mean,
yes.
I mean, I started this podcast because it's I believe that we all share a common purpose, and that is to make the world better than the day we landed on it.
Yes.
And you know, it's all about love. It's all about bringing people together, and that's why I love the format of my podcast. It's finding better, and it's sharing experiences, and it's lifting others, because when you lift others, you lift the world. And I'll tell you, you know, just a quick story. My daughter was the one who said, "Dad, you need to do a podcast." This was 10 years ago. And I said, "Honey, what the hell is a podcast? And why why me?" She says, "Dad, you know what? You've taught us and our friends so many amazing things. The world needs to hear what you have to say." I said,
Oh,
"Okay, whatever." So
I love that.
early last year, she said to me, she says, "Dad, I wrote this book. It's called American Grit." She says, "It
Mm.
took you 15 years to write that book, and we talked about your podcast 10 years." I said, "Are you serious? You're bringing that thing up again?" And she said, "Here's the thing, Dad. Here's the thing." She says, "Just do your podcast and give it to the universe."
Oh,
And she said, if and that way, if people need to find you and people need to hear the messages that you're giving people and your guests are giving people, they'll have a place to go. And if they're meant to find you, they'll find you. And and so I launched it. And in December of last year, you know, I'm in the throes of what the heck is a podcast? And this is in December, and I was starting it January 1st.
yeah.
And so I prayed, and I just said, "Okay, so am I supposed to be doing this?" And his response back to me was clearer than anything I ever got. And his words were, "You make it, I'll take it."
Oh, wow.
And I went, okay.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful. It's been one of the greatest joys of my life because I'm meeting people like you. We're sharing ideas and thoughts and experiences and the Lord, right?
Mhm.
And it's just been amazing. And I also want to just say, I mean, we talked about your background and the troubles that you went through with the PGA Tour. Um, and you've lived through it. And so, I just want to make sure we all understand this, that you're not just telling us how about the Bible and your interpretation of it. You're telling us your experiences and what you've seen and what you've been through and teaching us based on your experiences how the teachings in the Bible have manifested themselves in your life, which is amazing, which is amazing. And you're sharing that with other people. I can't tell you how amazing that is.
Well, that's the Lord gives us these experiences, and we're supposed to go out and comfort others in our afflictions, right? And so it's our duty to do so and to share the ways that God has pruned us in our life so we can help others bear fruit in theirs. And so it's just so important that we come alongside one another. And we do use social media as I call it a social media is a tool. It should not be something that overcomes and overtakes us. It
Yeah,
should be
we're
a
on we're on
tool in our
social
life.
and we're on social
Yes,
media right now, right?
exactly.
And
Social
you and I
media
are
can be a
so it's a
wonderful
good
thing.
thing. Exactly,
It can be a
exactly.
good thing, and it can be a way to I talk about faith friends in the book on how you should be surrounding yourselves with the salt and the light in your life, and that's going to help bolster your faith walk. Just as important as it is to share the good news with others, it's also important to continue to yoke yourself equally to other Christians so you can help yourself in your life. And so faith friends is one of those ways that you do so, is that you have a mentor or you are mentoring somebody else in your life. And it doesn't have to be in a formal manner, but just someone that can do life on life with you. And so when you are in your troubled times, like I had prayer warriors to come alongside me and to pray with me and to help me through that time. I had someone in the highlights of my life, to come alongside and to celebrate those times with me. And so that's important. And social media, this is just one of the ways that I talk about social media being a tool, is that you can come alongside and enhance your faith friend experience with someone else on social media, right? You can share tidbits from a podcast like yourself that helps you and brings joy to your heart. And you think, oh, well, my faith friend, this is going to help them in their faith walk too. I'll share it with them. Or let's go explore and see and find a church. Maybe we don't have a church family, so you need to find a church family. So many people find and get a good vibe on what the church that they want to see and go and visit and be a part of by going and looking on their social media first,
Right, right, right,
by
right.
sending each other
Absolutely.
Bible verses, tidbits from sermons. This is another way that social media can be a positive tool in your walk with other Christians, and how you can form a sort of community around you by who you are following on social media and the content that you yourself are sharing either in private messages or publicly on your social media account. How social media can be a wonderful tool for
Yes,
your
yes.
walk. But with anything else, it is also a cautionary tale that it should not be replacing in-person fellowship that God built us to need
Right.
and to have with one another, which is one of those big missing pieces that our teenagers and people that are suffering, are missing, is that in-person fellowship. Either on church on Sunday, they're watching it on their TV as opposed to going and sitting in the pew and in the seats. And then they're missing out on those faith friends that could be coming alongside of them in their
And
real life tangibly.
yeah, I want to. My daughter, when you talk about face to face
Mhm.
and all that, when this was years ago, but when she first went to college, she went to Santa Clara University, which is in the
Mhm.
middle of Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And one day, one of the executives of Facebook came
Mhm.
to give a talk to the business school. And my daughter is one of those people who forces herself to sit in the front seat so that she has to pay attention, right?
Sure. Hmm.
And so this Facebook executive says, "How many of you have Facebook accounts?" And everybody in the room raised their hand except my daughter.
Yeah.
And the speaker literally looked at my daughter and said, "Are you serious?" Because the whole room, it just sucked when
Hmm.
she said that I don't have a Facebook account, it sucked the air out of the whole room. And he says, "You really don't?" And she says, "No, I don't." He says, "Why not?" She says, "Because I turned it off and I canceled it when I got to this school." And he says, "You did?" He says, "So what happened?" And my daughter said, she looked him straight in the eye and said, "I got 8 hours a day of my life back."
Wow.
And 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 she kept it off um, for her throughout college, with the exception of participating on social media with her business clubs.
Yes. Hmm.
And it was all face to face, and it completely changed her life, and it for the better,
Yeah.
just turning it off. And not
Hmm.
very many people can do that, but yeah. And she realized that it can be poison, or it can be, as you say, a tool,
Hmm.
right? And use it properly.
Yes. Yeah. And
Use
it's
it
hard.
properly, and it's
It's so
amazing. Yeah.
hard. It's so hard. I mean, there is a real spiritual battle that takes place, worldwide. Social media is no exception. It is a battleground. And so we have to arm ourselves when we're coming at it. And some people, the best option might be to get off of it altogether. Some people, they're going to, like your daughter did, enrich their lives by getting off of it. Now, is that going to happen for everyone? No, not everyone's going to get off of it. So that's why we have to, and it's not, unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. So that's why we have
Right,
to
right.
really look at solutions from a worldview instead of just little things here and there that are going to
And uh,
come and
and
go.
also, as we've been talking about, a spiritual view, right?
Yes.
Because my gosh, we have to bring the spirit back. We have to bring
Mhm.
hope back. We have to, we have to bring a little more love back into this world,
We
because
do. We can use it
it's
in such a loving way and in a positive light, and
yeah,
use it to spread the truth and love. And, Satan is the author of lies, and he's going to take anything out there and he's going to twist it in order to help advance um, you know, his agenda. And so we can't let him do that. We've got to take social media back and do it from with an eternal lens. We have to have an eternal perspective in
yeah,
everything that we do, and including social media. And I think for whatever reason, so many people kind of have, everything that we do from our biblical lenses here, and then social media is over here outside of it. But we have to merge them together. We can't do anything in our
absolutely.
life without that biblical lens. Social media has to be a part of it.
One of the things that I advise people is, or I tell people based on my experience, is that, in business, I always subscribe to the idea that you should surround yourself with people who are far better than you are,
Yes.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And the people I surrounded myself in my life and continue to are way far better than I'll ever be, and I'm really blessed that way. Um, and I think about, folks out there who want to surround themselves with positive people,
Hmm.
who want to surround themselves with better influences in their life. How would you advise people to go about doing that from a spiritual standpoint?
I think that social media has to be a part of that equation, right?
Hmm.
Even
Hmm.
if you can't just only talk about people that you know, right? And people that are around you.
Right,
Social
right.
media is pouring into your mind, right? The old adage, garbage in, garbage out.
Yes,
Well, you got to put positive and wonderful things in to continue to have positive and wonderful things out. So social media is a great and easy way to start without, ruffling feathers and, booting people out of your life. You have to unfollow people and accounts and businesses and what have you that are adding to the negativity in your life, that are maybe
Yes.
giving you secular ideas that are not biblically laden in truth, that are putting maybe various things that we see out there, and like transgenderism and all these various things that do end up, muddying our heart and do end up leading us down some paths that make us either upset or angry or have that darkness that we don't even know about. So celebrities are a great place to start weeding out of your social media. Most celebrities are giving you garbage in, right? So you
Yeah.
need to be,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, Swifties. I'm sorry, people that like Taylor Swift or all these other different celebrities. You got to cut them out of following them of your social media, because they're going to be pouring in images, even if you don't think, oh, that this is fine, this is innocent. No, it's not. I mean, especially for teenage girls and things like that. If you are
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
someone who is dressed in a manner that is not modest, and you're seeing those things being poured in on your feed, well, you're subconsciously, having garbage come in. So please unfollow people like that. Your life is going to be fine if you're not following Taylor Swift. You
And
will
fu- uh,
survive. You
and
will be
not
fine.
not
And then
only Taylor Swift. I mean,
not only Taylor
I
Swift,
like her songs.
she's an easy
Yeah.
example. She's an
Or the
easy example.
Kardashians.
Yes, or those are just easy examples.
Yeah.
There are so many people probably need to start unfollowing many news headlines and news outlets as well, because the headlines overwhelm people, they anger people, all of those things.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to be an informed citizen and know to a degree what's happening, but this is something that I talk about. And one reason that I believe so many teenagers in particular have a lot of anxiety is because they know that there's so many bad things happening in the world. There always has been, right? But it's hyper focused now. We know
Right.
so much
Right.
of what's going on in the world. We didn't
Right.
always know everything that was happening in the world, and they feel hopeless. They feel like
Yeah.
they can't help. They can't possibly make a change to help the world. And that's true, because you're not supposed to. You're not God. You can't change what's happening worldwide. You probably have no effect on what's going on in DC. What you have an effect on, the biggest influence that you have, is on the people immediately around you. You are here not to be a social influencer and influence people because you have millions of followers. No, you've been put here to influence other people's souls. You are a soul influencer. So you have immediate influence on the people all around you. You have more influence on the people in your household than Kim Kardashian, who has however many million followers. You have more influence than she does.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
affecting those
Yeah.
people that are around you. So start small, start with the little piece that God has given you. And that is how you are going to make a difference in the world. So removing that anxiety of having all of these headlines making you feel hopeless, like you have no way to change the world because you don't, that you're not God. Remove those from your social media feed to a large degree. Only keep a couple news outlets here and there on there so you're not being bombarded, and you will have less anxiety about being hopeless and not being able to change the world. But talking
Life.
about surrounding yourself with those people,
Yep. Yep.
knowing that you are that sole influence for people and how that impacts their lives far more than whatever number of followers you have beside your name. That's huge for teenagers to realize.
Life is a series of baby steps.
Yes.
And this whole thing, when people look at it, can be so overwhelming, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you and I talked about a lot of things that
Mm-hmm.
I hope people who are listening will go back and listen to this again, because there's so much to unwind and understand. But life doesn't have to be that hard.
No.
It doesn't have to be hard. And what you said about garbage in, garbage out, as you apply it to social media, oh my gosh. I always applied that to computers. That's where that term came
Yeah.
from.
Mm-hmm.
Computer programming. But folks, it's all about like we talked about, getting the garbage out of your life,
Mhm.
right? First and foremost. And that's relatively easy to do. You just have to unfollow people.
Yeah, yeah, you can
And
do that. You need to do it
and
on a
you can
social
control
media
that.
level. Yeah, not just
Yeah,
the
you
people
can
in your
control it.
life, but do it on social media
You
because
can
you're interacting with your social media platform probably more than you are, your circle of people that
Oh,
you.
there's no doubt. There's no
Yeah.
question. There's
Mhm.
there's absolutely no question of that. And the thing about it about social media is, we talk about the bad, but we're also talking about the good
Yeah.
stuff on this.
Hmm.
You have the opportunity when you're using social media to control the narrative.
Yep.
You
Hmm.
control the narrative of your life and what goes into your head. And you
Hmm.
can use social media to surround yourself with amazing, amazing people. And
Hmm.
you might not have them in your immediate circle of influence or at your school or at work, but using social media as a tool, as Teryn was talking about, amazing. Listen, Teryn, you and this has been incredible. This has been incredible. I am so grateful that you've joined me today because some folks are going to listen to this and they're going to get a lot out of it.
Oh, I
And
pray they
um,
do.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So, folks, Teryn Gregson, she is the author of the book The Only Light That Matters is God's. Again, the only light that matters is God's. Using the Bible to transform your life on social media. Just amazing. And so, Teryn, we're at our time. Do you have anything else you'd like to just share real quick?
Just that, freedom is what you make it. So break free from anything that is weighing you down in your life and, liberate yourself. We have a home, started a homestead. We have no idea what we're doing, but God kind of whispered to us and we had peace. We're saying, okay, we're going to do it. It's been really hard. But again, if something's easy in your life, maybe you need to kind of reevaluate. The hard things are what form and shape us. And so I encourage people to go to teryngregson.com/book. You can get many resources for the book. There, you can also see various ways that you can form this into a Bible study or a small group study, or bring it to your church and show them on how it can be a resource for the church. I have church resources up there as well. So
Wonderful.
teryngregson.com/book.
Okay, and Teryn is spelt Teryn.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Teryn, Gregson, Gregson. Teryn, you are amazing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for all the work that you're doing to help people live better lives and bring the Lord into it. And I hope you'll come back and join me sometime.
I would
And
love that. Thank you.
yeah, this has been amazing. I love you. God bless you, Teryn. All of you out there, I love you. God bless you. Please share this. Please share this because someone out there needs to hear this message and is looking for this message. So until next time, have a great day. Have a great week. We'll see ya. Thanks.